From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. We're back. All right, second, national security concerns. So here's the deal. It's a criticism that surprised me personally, but you'll find scholars who say that IQT is problematic because it itself is a security risk. Here's what they're talking about. Some of the companies and startups that IQT messes with are international in scope. So this means that the CIA could run the risk of potentially, unnecessarily, allowing enemy forces to get an inner glimpse of the agency's methods, priorities, and current capabilities in a number of areas. Like here, hypothetically, let's say we're a foreign intelligence agency. We got out of the invention business, but now we're somehow a foreign intelligence agency. And Noel, you work at our foreign intelligence agency, and you have, because you're a very good spy, gotten a hold of IQT's wish list of technologies to watch. They refuse to say publicly to anyone what they use technology for, but you can look at this list, their wish list, and think, somebody really wants a fast way to translate handwritten Arabic. Right? Like, do you think you as this hypothetical agent could just look at a list and kind of from there figure out some priorities?
Yeah, I would certainly think so. And I mean, especially being the bigwig government venture capital guru that I most certainly am.
So yeah, you can see that concern is valid. The question is, how serious is this potential risk? And the problem is that it's nearly impossible to estimate any potential danger here because we don't know enough about IQT's inner workings.
But you know what we do know about?
What's that?
You can head on over to, these are two places to go. The first one is iqt.org/emerge.
Ah, yes.
Learn about that first, which is the innovation pipeline.
It'll come up. Yeah, it'll come up.
Yep. And next, this one's most important, iqt.org/labs, I believe. Let me make sure that's correct. Yes, iqt.org/iqt-labs. If you go there, you can get a list of the labs projects that they currently have going. And this is exactly what we were talking about, Ben. You can get a glimpse of some of the things. You're not going to get all the information, but you can get a glimpse of a lot of the things that are being worked on and a wish list of sorts, as you said.
And you can, while you're on that website, go ahead and head over to their portfolio section.
Yes.
So you can see where you can see a number of the companies they've invested in. These are still not the biggest concerns.
Nope.
The third concern, pretty obvious. I mean, like at this point, it's almost funny because it has to come up in these conversations all the time. And I'm sure the IQT folks have to deal with it on a daily basis. But it's just simply this. The CIA has a ton of historical baggage. And by nature of their close relationship, IQT gets associated with that baggage, whether or not it deserves it. I mean, imagine you're one of these startups. It's fair to assume at least a few of the startups have had second thoughts about partnering with a group that is funded by the same organization that has provably orchestrated coups, committed illegal experiments on human beings, and in fact grown so comfortable with assassination that they literally wrote manuals about the right way to do it. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it is fair for IQT to get associated with those horrific acts. But on the other hand, you can't really blame people for thinking about that, you know?
Yeah.
Like, the people who did MK Ultra are funding us on our neat app to help you know where all your shoes are.
Yeah, a shoe,
really
a
great.
shoe tracking system. Very elaborate.
But you know what they really are working on, guys? They are working on this thing called Infodemic, which is an automated matching of fact-checked claims about COVID-19. It's kind of interesting, right?
It's a good pun.
Here's another one: a teachable camera that can detect objects of interest in the field using AI hardware.
Guys, I'm sorry. I have to kind of repose the question I said earlier. This all sounds like stuff that they thought maybe would have some sort of intel use and then sort of, bombed. And then they ended up releasing it to the public as some sort of like cute novelty item, like shoe tracking.
I see. Yeah, well, weirdly enough, those things aren't mutually exclusive. Like, I would be the opposite of surprised if it turned out that there is a non-public version of Google Earth technology that is much more robust, has way cooler layers, and we're kind of getting the kiddie version. You know what I mean?
That's a good point, Ben.
I think I think you're absolutely right. Like, you wouldn't release something super robust and dangerous into the wild, because if the public can get it, the public's a big demographic. It's literally everybody else on Earth.
Yep.
Who is not the CIA.
Well, like, imagine it this way. Google Earth started early in the 2000s. You can still pull up Google Earth right now and check it out. And it's advanced significantly from a public-facing side from what it used to be, right? But imagine how far all of that satellite imagery, how high res some of that satellite imagery could be compared to what we are allowed to see as, a member of the public, a citizen of whatever country using Google Earth. I would argue, just as Ben said, there is a version of Google Earth or, Keyhole or whatever that tech was, that is, you could pick out, a quarter in somebody's hand standing on the ground.
Or a secret Facebook, right? And we all have profiles on it. And the thing is, our profiles, which are not accessible by us, have more information about us than we have about ourselves. You know what I mean?
Well, also, like, running that version of a Google Earth or a Keyhole you're talking about would require so much more processing power than an average consumer computer would have, or massive amounts of like on-site server capacity. So we think it's pretty dope. We can say it's my roof, but you're right. You could probably and those aren't real time necessarily, right?
Right.
Whereas maybe the version that exists in secret is real time and can like zoom in through windows. I mean, Keyhole.
I don't know.
I mean, listen, I'm making a jump here, but even the name Keyhole to me implies we can get you. We can get where you are.
Yeah. I'm taken with both of these ideas. I really want to. If you're a high level government operative and you're tuned into the show, thanks for listening. Also, let me know if there's a secret Facebook and what's on it. I don't know why. That just is. I'm so into that. It is possible. There is another elephant in the room. We do have to address it. The National Invention Secrecy Act of 1951.
There it is.
Yeah, we discussed this before in past episodes, but here's the gist. You're an inventor with a technology that might have an impact on national security defined in a cartoonishly broad way. The U.S. government can and will just take your patent. They'll pay you a little bit for it. It's weird. I learned this after we talked about it. They literally do have a pay scale based on how much or how little they believe your invention could impact national security.
Sure. It's like paying FBI informants or something like that, right? It's probably tied to the quality of the intel they're getting.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's a good comparison.
It really is. And here's the thing. Let's say you are that inventor, guess what? Getting paid, sucker.
Well, I think it's also a good analogy because FBI informants are often forced to be that under duress, where like they are, like arm twisted because you're gonna go to prison unless you cooperate. But they also get paid a little stipend. It's the same with these inventors. You don't really have a choice, but we're gonna take the sting out a little bit by giving you a few, ducats.
Yeah, but you gotta keep it tight. Keep it. You can't talk to anybody about it.
No.
Omerta's the code. Yeah, that's the thing. We don't know how these inventors feel about this process. We know that there are some alive right now, maybe even listening to this show, who have been subjected to it. but we will never know their reactions because they are subject to a incredibly powerful gag order. Prevents you from discussing this in public, from publishing work related to this, from talking about it pretty much for the rest of your life or until that order is rescinded. And this means, taking it back to IQT, this means that if you are a startup or an inventor, you might feel there is an implied threat in an offer from IQT. You may feel it's an offer you can't really refuse because you're dealing with the people who enforce the rules, like enforce the law. So they can also, and they all, the CIA also has a track history of ignoring the law when it becomes inconvenient. So whether or not there is a real threat here, it's understandable that people might freak out when they imagine all the consequences of a conversation going sideways. So that's one of the big concerns. But ultimately the biggest concern with this, I would say, is IQT's secrecy. Like Matt said, you can learn a lot about the organization through their official website. And once you get past some of the corporate speak, you'll see substantive details on companies they work with, areas of technology, et cetera, et cetera. But when you ask how much money they give, when you ask some of those financial details, the conversation cuts off. And specifically, when you ask, hey, so what do you guys want this for? Like, I'm also really excited about the intersection and the synergy and the secret sauce. This is so wheelhouse, bro.
What is under that kimono, after all?
Oh, God, I hate that one. I was talking with someone about that one earlier. But yeah, when you ask what are you using it for, and you get past the corporate buzz terms, they're just not going to tell you. It's their policy. And that means that it makes everybody kind of like that hypothetical foreign intelligence agent. You're left to conjecture, read some tea leaves, speculate, and then worry.
Oh, I'm going to do that later. Right before we end this episode, I'm going to give you a heavy dose of that.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So in their defense, multiple individuals from all sides, private startups, former executives, CIA officials, scholars, et cetera, they've spoken pretty openly about IQT and how it works and what they like about it. The problem is, in this situation, again, because of CIA baggage, anything less than full transparency will inevitably keep the conspiracy fires burning. That praise, by the way, the reason all the former employees have such a good attitude about it is very understandable, because I didn't know this, but for a long time, if you were employed there, you had to put 10% of your pay into a fund that invested in all the stuff In-Q-Tel was investing in. And that meant that you got a piece of the pie. Those became your bonuses, those payouts. It's probably better than a 401k, and there's no detail right now about how much money that shook out to per employee. But they were not strapped for cash, when Christmas came around or anything like that. The experiment, and it did start as an experiment, is a success. So much so the Army, the Navy, other agencies have or are planning their own venture capital efforts based on this model. And the future is scary. IQT is evolving. Just this year, they announced a program we briefly mentioned called IQT Emerge. This, oh man, do you guys remember this? The old toy sets, Spy Tech?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the sideways, the mirrored shades.
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff.
I know. I mean, the most popular ones were the mirrored shades, I think, which were very awkward looking. They were very elongated. Right, the laser one, and like invisible ink, various invisible ink type situations.
That's right. I forgot about the invisible ink. Well, we might not be the only people who really dug Spy Tech toys, because IQT Emerge is kind of doing a grown-up version of Spy Tech. They want to take the stuff that they have developed or funded and make it commercially available, probably in a safer version than whatever they're actually using. So their idea is that they can make another income stream, and they can also, brace yourself for the corporate terms here, They can also spur innovation and encourage public and private sector collaboration.
Yeah, man. That's pretty cool. So just this concept that they're going to take stuff developed, through all these connections, them being at the center of the matrix there, because they are, and being able to make just tons of money because they are venture capital after all.
And they're not for profit. And it's interesting because, again, it doesn't matter how much money they do or don't make.
That's so interesting. I think of the terms venture capital and not for profit being like the two most unrelated concepts that could be. But I guess they can coexist, huh?
Yeah. And what I love about not for profit is such a Goldilocks thing. It's like we don't have to make money, but we won't get in trouble if we do.